Hi guys, Miss Gregory. This is the Advanced book, Chapter 4, Lesson 4. We are skipping around again. This is to ensure we get all the curriculum in before the end of the school year. Referring to textbook pages 292 through 294. This technically should be a review. This is how to add and subtract, unlike fractions with different denominators, but we're also using our knowledge of integers and how to add and subtract integers. Note you need your green hardback textbook. This is where you take notes, so you need notebook paper and pencil. Alright, notice the little funny there. Moving on. Don't forget you should be dating and titling the page as we move through in your notes. Remember, the little pencil icon is a reminder to you that you need to write this down. So beginning lesson 4.4, today's date, textbook, we are on page 292. Okay, I took a screenshot of the top of the page because everything here is so very important, and this is a good review of unlike fractions, meaning fractions that have a different denominator. If you're adding or subtracting fractions, before you can do that, they have to have the same denominator. So if you are adding or subtracting fractions with different denominators, you've got to use a strategy to get common denominators. You can have common denominators. The easiest would be the least common denominator. Once they are denominators that are in common, then you can add or subtract whichever it's asking you to do, and remember, you're only going to add or subtract the numerators. Leave the denominators alone. And as always, with your final answer, make sure that it's simplified. Now, the book on page 292 shows two different methods for finding common denominators. One is using a number line and the other is using the LCD. I'm going to show you the LCD method, but I don't like the way the book goes through the examples by doing the fractions going horizontally across the paper. It's really much easier, and you are less likely to make a mistake if you will do the examples the way I'm going to show you on notebook paper, which is going down the page vertically. I'll show you what I mean by looking at the next problem. Okay, so I've already set up part of the page for you, and now we're going to work through the problems together. On page 292, example 1, 1/2 plus 1/4. Okay, so you need to get a common denominator. Several different strategies you could use, but this one's pretty easy. You know that 2, the smaller denominator, will go evenly into 4, the larger denominator. So since that's the case, you can leave this fraction 1/4 the same, which makes your work easier. This denominator, oops, let me try that again, is going to have to be a 4. And so you've got to figure out 2 times what will give you 4. 2 times 2, whatever you multiply, the top and bottom has to be the same. So 1 times 2 is 2/4. Again, you probably knew that off the top of your head, that 1/2 is the same as 2/4. Some numbers are easier to deal with than others, but I'm going to go through the process with you. Alright, so now you have 2/4 plus 1/4, which is, okay, gonna have issues with it not writing correctly. So let's try this again. 3/4 would be your answer, and that does not need to be simplified. Now, this was just going over how to do the fractions. Both of these were positive, so you didn't have to worry about your integer rules. So look at the other side of the squiggly line where I tried to separate the problems, and look at the problem 9/10 plus negative 1/2. Alright, they have different signs as a reminder, we need to subtract them. But first we've got to get common denominator, so let's work on that. Obviously, again, pretty easy because 2 will go into 10 evenly. So I'm going to leave this 9/10. New denominator becomes 10. I've got to multiply by 5, top and bottom, 1/2, obviously 5/10. Now this is a negative 5/10. Okay. So remember that that comes over as well. So really you're looking at 9 plus negative 5. They have different signs you need to subtract. So 9 minus 5 is 4/10. Now, you've got to have the sign of your answer for the one with the greater absolute value. 9/10 has the greater absolute value and it's positive. So this would be positive 4/10, but this can be simplified. I can divide both of those numbers by 2 because they're even numbers. So I would get a final simplified answer of 2/5. Okay? Now, this is where you need to pause and set up with your notebook paper the Got It section. There are Got It's A, B, C, and D. Then I'm going to move on and work example 2. So pause now, work the Got It's, and when you come back I'll have the answers for you to check. Thank you. Alright, now you can see Got It's A, positives, so change the denominators. You've got 5, 6, no simplifying necessary. For B, that's the problem I worked on the previous page, and we got an answer of positive 2/5. For C, get common denominators. They're both positive. You've got an answer of 5/8, no simplifying needed. Now on D, just a reminder that like signs you're adding. So a negative plus a negative should have a negative answer, and negative 7/12 would be the answer for the Got It's. Okay, now we're going to move on to example 2. Pause and write the problem down. Okay, so we've set up the problem. We are on page 293, example 2, and the first line shows the problem, negative 3/4 plus 5/9 plus 7/4. So what I did was look at the commutative property, and I switched and put the like fractions together. So negative 3/4 plus 7/4 plus 5/9. Now, before I work anything out, these are opposite signs or different signs we need to subtract. So when I'm figuring this out, I've got 7 minus 3, which is 4/4, and it's going to be positive 4/4 plus 5/9. I can take the ones that are alike, go ahead and get them together, then I can work with getting a common denominator. However, in this case, 4/4 is the same as a whole, so really what we're saying is 1 plus 5/9, and obviously the answer would be 1 and 5/9. Since they are the same sign, there's really nothing hard with that one. You just always need to pay attention to the signs and use your LADs or keep change rules, and you need to pay attention to the denominators to make sure you have like denominators. Alright, so now would be your time to pause and do the Got It's E and F. Come back and check your answer. Okay. Back on page 293, check your Got It's E and F. Notice the red line separating the two problems. Really, I thought these were very easy. Look at my steps and you'll see where I combined like denominators. For E, you're left again with 5/5, which is a whole. They're both positive, so super easy to deal with E. For F, you needed to get your like denominators together. You had different signs, subtract, and you end up with 20 over 10. Well, of course, 20 over 10 is going to be positive because 23 over 10 is the greater absolute value. 20 over 10 also means that's just 2 whole plus 5/8. So again, these really were not that difficult. Okay, moving on. We've got page 293, example 3. Now it's going to get a little bit harder. Let's go ahead and work through. We have Okay, so example 3, I went ahead and wrote it this way to start with, negative 2/3 minus 1/2, because we're going to have to do a keep change here because it is subtraction. So we're going to keep negative 2/3, change to addition, and then this becomes a negative 1/2. Okay, now we have like signs and we're going to add. Alright, so I'm going to come over here to the right and redraw this problem as negative 2/3 plus a negative 1/2. Again, I really would like you to go with this method of when you're changing denominators, setting it up one on top of the other instead of working horizontally across the page. Again, I don't think it's too difficult for you guys to realize here that the common denominator is 6. Okay, we're going to go ahead and work through the math on that, and that would be a negative 4. Obviously, we're going to multiply by 3 here, and that's going to be a negative 3. Like signs, we are going to add. So I've got negative 7 over 6. We need to technically change this one last thing and make it a mixed number. So that would be negative 1 and 1/6. as a final answer to example number 3. And again, this is where you would stop and you are going to do the got it's G H I. Pause, come back, and check your work when you're done. Okay, these got it's, because they're fractions and unlike denominators and subtraction, meaning we're having to do a keep change, they're going to take up a lot of room. For me with this stylus anyway, I'm going to just put one problem per page. So here is the got it G. Okay, I went ahead and wrote it like it was from the book going across, thinking maybe this way would be easier for you to see the keep change. So we've got 5/8 plus a negative 1/4, and reminding you that they are different signs, we're going to subtract. So move over to the purple writing, and I set it up like I've been asking. 5/8 plus a negative 1/4. Now we need to get common denominators and work through 5/8 plus a negative 2/8. So really we're just focusing on the numerators, 5 plus negative 2, which would be 3. The 3 is positive, and the answer would be 3/8, no simplifying necessary. Okay, and H, got it. 3/4 minus 1/3. Again, I showed you the keep change, which you need to write down as well. Don't try to do this in your head. It's too much. You will make mistakes. Next year you'll be solving these types of problems within equations and inequalities, so you've really got to understand this process and not try to do it in your head. Alright, but again, things are switched over and you've got different signs. Subtract. So you've got 3/4 plus negative 1/3. Get your common denominators of 12. Work everything out to 5/12. And just a reminder, you're keeping the sign with the greater absolute value. Okay, last, got it, I. 1/2 minus a negative 2/5. This changes up a little bit. It's still a keep, change, but once it's rewritten, it becomes like signs, add, and they're both positive numbers. So this one's much easier. And as you can see, the answer is 9/10. Now, I'm going to go ahead and skip as far as the video. The example 4 above the guided practice, we can work that together in class. I want you to focus on the guided practice questions, numbers 1 through 7. Don't forget to rate yourself, and notice I also circled here, you should be showing me your work just as I modeled for you. You need to make sure your fractions are in simplest form as your answer, and you can use this screenshot if you can read it, or you can turn in your book to page 294 where the guided practice is. Thanks, and see you tomorrow in class. Keep calm. Love math. Bye, y'all.